Today we're looking at Isaiah 19, and we've noticed, like I've said, that this is broken into bits and pieces. Today we've got some for Egypt, and then we've got some. There's some that are a little bit nondescript. They're called the burden of the valley and the burden of the desert of the sea. So you're gonna have to read it a little bit and see what it's really saying. Um, so we're starting with the burden of Egypt, and again to remind you, the burden is the thing that you're going to have to do. This is what you're going to have to bear. Judgment is coming. You've decided this is the way you want it to be. This is the way it's going to be. But behold, the Lord rideth with a swift cloud, and shall come unto Egypt, and the idols of Egypt shall be moved at his presence. And I will set the Egyptians against the Egyptians, and they shall fight each one against his brother, and against his neighbor, and city and kingdom. And the spirit of Egypt shall fail in the midst of thee, and I will destroy the counsel thereof. Now you're saying, well, what does this have to do with Israel? Anybody connected with Israel, anyone that can be a support to Israel, anyone who's had unfair dealings with Israel, this is like the settling of accounts. If you remember, when David finished and was giving it over to Solomon, the kingdom over to Solomon, you're changing kingdoms, you settle accounts. So this is really where Yahweh, Jehovah, is going to handle it off to Adonai, Yeshua, still God, but it's going to be a changing of accounts. So here we have this Isaiah, Jeremiah is settling the accounts. And the Egyptians will I give over into the hands of a cruel Lord, because you've been a cruel Lord. Now remember that when you see this justice mete out, remember, this is how they treated other people. They're getting, if you don't ask for forgiveness through the shed blood of a lamb, according to the Old Testament, you will receive equity. Equity is that eye for an eye. You treated people this way, you're going to treat this way. You wiped people like a dish, you're going to get wiped like a dish. The fisher shall mourn. He's going to destroy the economy. Most of the streams, and they had made money off of the river Nile and all these things. The paper reads by the brooks, by the mouth of the brooks, and everything sown by the brooks shall wither and drive away and be no more. The fisher shall mourn, and all that cast the angle into the brook shall lament, and they that spread nets upon the waters shall languish. He's going to take care of them. They're going to lose their economy. And where do we see Egypt today? Egypt is just another nation among the nations. When it was this great nation, it built pyramids, it had strong armies, it looked like it was undefeatable. And here God is bringing it down. He goes, surely the princes of Zon are fools, and the counsel of the wise counsels of Pharaoh is brutish. How say you unto Pharaoh, I am the son of the wise, the son of ancient kings? Where are they? Where are the wise men? Let them tell thee now, and let them know what the Lord of hosts has proposed unto Egypt. So even the wise men would have seen that this is what Jehovah is going to do. Neither shall there be any work for Egypt, either by the head or the tail, branch or rush may do. And that day Egypt will be like unto women, and it shall be afraid and fear because of the shaking of the hand of the Lord. It's going to be like women. Instead of men standing and going off into battle, it's going to be like women quaking and for fear. He talks about the cities. He talks about that later, though, and this has an inkling of, again, the millennial reign, is that there will be a witness, and the Lord of hosts in the land of Egypt, for they shall cry unto the Lord because of oppressors. And again, even in this area has a lot of oppression. The Lord will make known to Egypt and the Egyptians that know the Lord in that day, and do sacrifice and oblation. They shall vow a vow unto the Lord, and the Lord will smite Egypt. He will smite it and heal it. So here he's talking about not just smiting, but he's also going to heal. In that day there's a highway out of Egypt to Assyria, and the Assyrian shall come unto Egypt, and Egypt unto the Assyrian. They're going to make a highway that goes all the way from the north in Assyria down through Egypt. And guess where they're going through? You're going through the Holy Land, and you're going through Jerusalem. That's where Yahweh will be. And the Lord of hosts shall bless, saying, Blessed be Egypt, the people, and Assyria, the work of my hands, and Israel mine inheritance. See, when he raised up Egypt the first time to show his might, he will also raise them up. Because he raised them up once, he's going to raise them up again, in forgiveness. Because he raised up Assyria, he's going to raise them up again, but this time in forgiveness. In chapter 20 is a small one. It's giving some backstory about what was happening. There was a picture lesson, of a prophecy that was in picture, a prophecy that was lived out in front of them. In the year that Tatian came unto Asdod, which is just something historical that had happened up in the north, the same time the Lord, by Isaiah, he said, go and loose the sackcloth off your loins and put off the shoe off your foot. So Isaiah walked around 3 years naked and barefoot. And the Lord said, like my servant Isaiah has walked around naked and barefoot 3 years for a sign unto Egypt and unto Ethiopia. So the area down there of Egypt, and then you see Ethiopia is down near it. They're giving a sign that when they saw the prophet, and his buttocks were showing, basically. When they say naked there, I don't know if it's full naked, which might have been, or naked was just the embarrassment of having your buttocks showing. Could have been that, but I will go with a full naked on this, because he mentions buttocks, is why I do. So shall the king of Assyria lead away the Egyptians prisoners and the Ethiopians captives, young and old, naked and barefoot, even with their buttocks uncovered. So that's why I'm saying he could have been fully naked. He could have been just, with its buttocks showing, which would have been shameful. And they shall be afraid and ashamed of Ethiopia in their expectation, and Egypt in their glory, and the inhabitants of the isles to this day. Behold, such is our expectation. So he was giving them an expectation of what was going to happen. In 21, we're talking about Babylon falling. So we're shifting gears. Here we've talked about Assyria coming down, and then we're talking about what's going to happen to Assyria with Babylon. But now we shift into a different one. So we've had one about Egypt and Assyria. Now we're talking about the burden of the desert of the sea. And he saw a vision there which was grievous, and there was a treacherous dealer dealing treacherously, and the spoiler spoileth. Go up, Elam, and besiege, O Media. Now, who was it that was sent, that God sent to destroy Babylon? It was the Persians and the Medians. So the Medians. So here we have these groups getting ready. They're told to go up and take Babylon. So, besiege, O Media, and besiege, O Elam. Therefore my loins are filled with pain. And this is him talking. The I here, of course, is Isaiah. My loins are filled with pain, as a woman with travails. My heart panteth fearfully of fright. And in the night of my pleasure, which had turned unto fear unto me, perhaps the table, watch in the watchtower, eat and drink, arise, ye princes, anoint your shields. They're getting ready to go to battle. Thus saith the Lord unto me, go, set a watchman. And I saw a chariot, and a couple of horsemen, and a couple of asses, and a couple of camels. And then he said, I hearkened diligently, and he cried, a lion! I see a lion. Stand continually at the watchtower, and behold, there came a chariot of men, saying, Babylon has fallen. Babylon has fallen. It's predicted to fall. And are graven images that he has broken into the ground. Oh, the threshing and the corn on my floor, which I have heard the Lord of hosts, the God of Israel, has declared unto me. He talks about the burdens here, the burden of Arabia, and the burdens of these areas. The inhabitants of Tema brought water to him that was thirsty. They fled from the swords, and from the drawn sword, and from the bow bent. Thus saith the Lord, within a year. Within a year, the glory of Kedar will fall, and the residue of the number of archers and mighty men shall diminish. So here we have in 21, talking about the falling of Babylon. So we have two different ideas. We're talking about Egypt and Assyria. Now we're talking about Babylon. He's going to talk back and forth. We're going to keep talking about these areas. The interesting thing about Isaiah, I will mention, is there's 66 books, which are kind of like, 66 chapters, kind of like our Bible that has 66 books. But the first 40 are pretty much the downer, the judgment, and all of this. But the last 27 or so, 26, are very up about the coming of a Messiah. So if it seems gloomy here for a while, we're on 22. So we only have to go through 39 and 40 on these. In chapter 22, the burden of the valley of vision. Well, aileth thee now, and what has that thou art gone up to your rooftops? People went to the rooftops to see, but they also went to the rooftops to hide out. Art thou full of stirs, a tumultuous city, a joyous city? Thy slain men are not slain within swords, nor dead in battle. All thy rulers have fled altogether. They are bound by archers, all of them that have found bound together. And here in 22, he's talking about Jerusalem. So we're jumping around a little bit. We're not really chronological. But here he talks about, look away from me, I will weep bitterly. Labor not to comfort me because of the spoiling of the daughter of my people. The my people there is Isaiah 4. For it is a day of trouble and treading down and perplexity by the Lord God of hosts in the valley of vision. So here we're going to see this. He saw this vision where he saw what was going to happen to Jerusalem at the time of the Babylonian captivity. Elam laid bare the quiver, and Kir uncovered her shield. So Elam and Kir are going to be there with the Babylonians. And he discovered the coverings of Judah. And thou didst look into the day of the armor and the day of the forest. Ye have seen also the breaches of the city of David, and they are many. So there's many places for them to go in. There's many places for this to happen. You made also a ditch between the two walls of the water of the old pool, and have not looked unto the maker thereof, neither have you respect for him that fashioned it. And in that day the Lord God of hosts called to weeping and mourning and baldness and the girding of sackcloth. And behold, joy and gladness, slaying of oxen and killing of sheep. People are doing these things. Some are weeping, some are rejoicing, but they're saying, eat and drink, for tomorrow we die. So this is what's happening. They see this written on the wall. They see this going on. And they're saying, eat and drink and be merry, for tomorrow we die. And it has been revealed in mine ears by the Lord of hosts, surely this iniquity shall not be purged until you die, said the Lord God of hosts. He's coming at them because of their sin. And so that's happening. So you get both ends of the spectrum. Those that are mournful, those that are kind of giving in to their fate. He also calls out and says to the treasurer, he calls unto a guy named Shebna. He's wanting to replace the bad treasurer. He goes, what hast thou there? And whom hast thou here? What hast thou hewn out a sepulchre that thou hast hewn out? Let me go back. 3, 2, 1. So we see that this is called a day of perplexity, and a treading down and a perplexity by the Lord God of hosts in the valley of vision. He calls out to Elam. Elam will be there with quivers and chariots, and Kir will uncover their shield. They're coming to battle with Babylon. And it shall come to pass that the choicest valleys will be filled with chariots. And he discovered the covering of Judah, and thou didst look into the day of the armor that into the house of the forest. Let's try this again. 3, 2, 1. So here in 22 it says, for it was a day of trouble, and a treading down and a perplexity by the Lord God of hosts in the valley of visions. He's showing this vision to Isaiah to warn Jerusalem. Jerusalem is an iniquity. And he's saying that Elam will bear the quiver, and Kir will uncover their shield. And it will come to pass that thy choicest valleys will be full of chariots. And there will also be breaches. You'll see breaches in the city of David, and there will be many. And you have numbered the houses of Jerusalem, and the houses that have been broken down to fortify the wall. They're going to try to take care of it. This is a inkling of a siege. If you're trying to fortify your walls to keep the enemies out, you're under siege. In that day, the Lord God of hosts is calling to weeping and to mourning and to baldness and the girding of sackcloth. But behold, joy and gladness, slaying oxen and killing sheep and drinking wine. Let us eat, drink, and be merry, for tomorrow we die. And that's what we have here, is you're going to have groups that are going to be trying to worship and trying to appease. Others are just accepting their fate. And it will be revealed in mine ears by the Lord of hosts, surely this iniquity shall not be purged until you all die. And he even goes after the treasurer, because there's been so much iniquity with the treasury of his own house. He says, go get the treasurer, even Shebna, which is over the house. And he goes and takes Shebna and releases him out and takes him out. And says, I will drive thee out of thy station, and from thy state shall he pull thee down. And I shall come to pass in that day that I'll call my servant Elikam, the son of Hilkiah, and I will clothe him with your robe, and strengthen him with your girdle, and I will commit thy government into his hands. So this person's going to be taken out. He's going to be moved out of the way, and there'll be someone else in there. And the key of the house of David will I lay upon his shoulder, talking about Elikam, so that he can open and none will shut, and he will shut and none will open, and I will fasten him as a nail. Here's God getting involved with the government of fallen Jerusalem at that time. In that day, saith the Lord of hosts, the nail that I have fastened in a sure place, it shall be moved, and it be cut down and fail, and the burden that was on it will be cut off, for the Lord has spoken it. The Lord is going to take down one nail and set up another nail. So here we have, again, in these chapters, we're talking against Egypt, Assyria, we've talked against Babylon, and then we're also talking against Jerusalem. And again, like I said, this is to me, this sounds like disclosure. I'm letting you guys know the way it's going to be and the way it is, and why I'm going to do. It just doesn't smack people for no reason. A lot of this is disclosure. And we need to know that this God that doesn't change is going to treat heathen nations the way he's always treated them. So we should be fearful, and we should know this God, tell others about this God. But seeing him is a clarity of what happened on the cross also. And this God goes into the New Testament. He doesn't change just because he goes to the cross. It's still Yahweh that we're dealing with in the New Testament. And we're still worshiping Yahweh now through the King, Adonai, who is Jesus. So we've got to stay Old Testament thinking all the way to the end. And this will make more sense. When we shift gears somehow, for some silly reason, from Old Testament thinking to what we call New Testament thinking, I'm going to try not to do that. I'm going to try to go straight from Old Testament thinking and go right into Matthew and Mark, just like I was dealing with Isaiah and Jeremiah. And I think it'll bear different fruit. It'll be interesting to see.